The RGB20S is a very odd looking device, which is typical of Powkiddy products. And if you've read any of our Powkiddy reviews, you'll know that they're a little hit and miss when it comes to quality. But this device here has somewhat impressed me. When I first saw the leaked designs, I was immediately close to throwing up in a bin, but after unboxing this handheld, I was instantly in love with the size. But that said, can another RK3326 device make it in mid-2022? Let's find out. First of all, let's talk about the design and the overall layout of the handheld. It's all over the place. Powkiddy has used so many buttons on this device that there's literally no more space on the face of the handheld. And while I am on the subject of face, yeah, I'm not the only one that sees this, and after this review process, I have started to see this face in my dreams. Not fun. That aside, I would have preferred the D-pad to be above the analog stick, just because that's what I am used to, and it's where my thumbs naturally sit when holding the device. The action buttons are fairly low on the chin, but I had no problems getting to them, even if the buttons are smaller than I am used to. The face in the middle is 3 different buttons, one being start, the other being select, and the mouth is the function button which is used to get around the emulator settings. Above that you have the 3.5-inch IPS display, which they are advertising as full fit. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I think that means that it has very small bezels and it fits to the edge of the handheld, which I think is really nice and makes the device look a little more modern. The quality of the screen is great too. It has a resolution of 640 by 480, very nice viewing angles, impressive brightness, and because it's an OCA display, it sits very close to the cover, meaning no gaps and less chance of getting dust behind the screen. I think they chose a really great display here. Around the device you'll find your standard buttons such as on and off, 2 USB-C ports, volume buttons, and your SD card slots for adding in your own ROMs. I was lucky enough to get a unit that had ROMs preloaded because Powkiddy doesn't give a shit. But the back is where things get a little interesting, and this is the first time I have seen shoulder buttons or even this layout on any handheld device that I have reviewed in my years. They are incredibly large and all 4 of them take up the whole width of the device. The L2 and R2 buttons sit slightly higher than the L1, R2, making it easier for you to switch between them subconsciously, and I'll be honest, the quality of the shoulder buttons are terrible, but dang do they feel comfortable, and the positioning for my hands is near perfect due to the slightly raised nature of them at the back. They're big, they're chunky, and they require very little movement, making them a pleasure to play on for long periods of time. But due to the sheer size of them, it makes the device less portable, especially when the analog sticks don't sit flush with the shell either. Oh, and if you press them hard enough, they'll sound like Chewbacca. So don't do that. Tucked below the shoulder buttons, you will have the 3500 mAh battery pack, making the handheld feel very dense, compact, and it gives it a sense of low center of gravity, and in no way does it feel light or low quality, which is something I expected from Powkiddy. But B-Dog, how does it perform and what's under the hood, I hear you ask? Well, to nobody's surprise, it's rocking a RK3326 chip, which is something I didn't think I'd be saying in the middle of 2022, but here we are, and the ever-increasing global chip shortage is forcing handheld manufacturers to use their old stock. And for us, that simply means more of the same, which sucks. But that said, Powkiddy has only priced this device at around about £66 here in the UK, which makes me think they know people are getting fed up with it and have somewhat agreed to lower their prices slightly, making this a new device for under $80 with a nice screen, a nice layout, a reliable chip, 5 hours of battery life, and 1 GB of RAM. Not bad, it could be worse. Straight out of the box, the RGB20S works a treat. It's loaded with Emulation Station, which is easy to understand. It even gives you some nice customization options with just a few clicks. Mine came preloaded with hundreds of games, and not that I think that's right, because it isn't, but it makes it far easier for those of you that have no idea about emulators. It's quite literally pick up and play straight out of the box. In terms of performance, you'll get the same type of quality as you do from other RK3326 chips, so this may sound similar to our other handheld reviews. Due to the great choice of 4x3 display, your typical retro games will fill up the screen quite nicely with no big black borders. After testing all retro consoles up to PS1, I was impressed. Gameplay was good, audio had very little cracking, and screen tearing was a rarity. They have loaded Dreamcast games on here, but I wouldn't recommend it. I had a couple of crashes and the overall quality was pretty poor. So do not buy this for Dreamcast games. PSP and PlayStation 1 games played well. Even large 3D games on the PS1 performed to a high standard, but where the console shines is Game Boy games and a handful of N64. Game Boy Advance games are flawless, and most smaller N64 games work very, very well, especially with the large choice of buttons to map to. And as mentioned before, all consoles have mapped keys straight out of the box, so I rarely had to change anything, which is a nice feature for those of us that hate tinkering. It's hard to hate a device when the gameplay quality is reasonable. It's a £60 device, especially in an age where sub $100 handhelds are rarely released, and in conjunction with the nice screen and shoulder buttons, it's just a pleasurable handheld to play on, even if the analog sticks look like Godzilla's nipples. Yes, the device looks overcrowded, yes, it's still using an old chip, and yes, it's not very portable, but for some reason, I really like playing on it. I like a horizontal handheld, so I may be biased, but I am genuinely impressed that Powkiddy has launched this RGB20S for a reasonable price and it doesn't immediately suck. I would have loved it if the team behind this handheld made Godzilla's nipples less obtrusive and maybe held back on the 3000 buttons and switched the D-pad stick layout slightly, but it's a cool little device. I wouldn't recommend buying it if you already have an RK3326 device, but for those new to the scene and fancy a really comfortable, easy to set up horizontal handheld under $100, then this is one to keep an eye on. Honestly, Powkiddy, not bad. Not bad at all. So there you have it. If you enjoyed this review, hit subscribe and make sure to check out our website for more written content and reviews. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.